I'm Igor Kayfetz, and this is The List Building Lifestyle, the podcast for anyone who wants to build a wildly profitable email list working from home. If you'd like to make six figures, travel the world, and help people improve their lives in the process, this podcast is for you. I also invite you to claim a free copy of my best-selling book, The List Building Lifestyle: Confessions of an Email Millionaire, at igorsbook.com. Get the free book plus $3,000 bonus package that includes my best capture page templates, email swipe files, and traffic blueprints. Visit www.igorsbook.com for details. And now, it's time to claim your list building lifestyle. Welcome back to the List Building Lifestyle. I'm your host, Igor Kayfetz. I'd like to start today's episode with a question. Can you really want something and never get it? Can you really be going around and saying that you want to lose weight or make more money or start a dream business of yours, but at the same time, continuously go through life feeling like you're never making progress? And if it's possible, and we know it is, why is that? Well, that's the question that I'd like to answer on this episode with the help of my guest, John Assaraf. John's a two-time New York Times best-selling author, and he is the big brain of the internet, or at least the internet marketing community. He is the founder of Brainathon. He's the author of Innercise, and he's the brain coach and business coach to over 100,000 people. My first exposure to John was through the movie The Secret, where he first showed up as the guy who introduced the idea of the vision board. He told the story of how he was unpacking a box after moving to a bigger place and found one of his vision boards that kind of showcased the dream life of the rich and famous he wanted to live and how he achieved that life. Now, many years later today, we are going to have a little bit of a different conversation because we will touch on law of attraction. We will touch on the ideas expressed in the movie The Secret. But most importantly, we're going to take a scientific approach to the whole thing. And you're going to discover exactly what is the missing puzzle piece for you to finally achieve your goals. So help me welcome Mr. John Assaraf. John, welcome to the List Building Lifestyle.
Thanks, Igor. It's great to be with you.
It's a true pleasure and honor to host you. I've been following you for years. I think one of the biggest impacts on my thinking was the book, The Answer, that you co-authored. I just don't recall exactly with whom you co-authored it, but that was kind of eye-opening for me because it made the switch for me from just thinking of the woo-woo magic stuff to actual applicable actions I could be taking instead of just thinking about success. Now, I want to start off with you kind of sharing with us a bit of your life story, especially from the point when you were in the real estate business trying to make a name for yourself and trying to make some money.
Sure. Well, it actually happened in the town you're living in right now, in Toronto. At the time, and we're going back a long way, you weren't even born. But at 19, I found myself at a crossroads in my life. I was actually living in Montreal at the time. I was working in a factory, making $1.65 an hour, shipping boxes and opening up boxes and freaking hating my life. And on the side, I was selling drugs and doing breaking and entries to make some extra money, and was involved in a little gang of 5 guys that hung out together and drank a lot and did drugs and made a little extra money on the side, or I should say a lot of extra money on the side doing illegal things. And the reason I did that is I thought that was the way that I was going to be successful, because I didn't have the belief in myself that I was smart enough to achieve success. And that stemmed from failing English and math in grade 7, falling 2 years behind, leaving high school in grade 11, and being told for most of my high school life that if I didn't graduate high school, if I didn't go to college, I would amount to nothing. And so I did stuff on the side to amount to something.
Wow.
And a lot of people don't know that. That was in my first book. I shared that in my Having It All book. But what happened, I'll make the story short because I know we don't have a lot of time, is my brother was concerned for my well-being. One of the guys that I was hanging around with died. Another guy went to jail, and that was kind of like the path I was on. And my brother said, hey, why don't you come to Toronto? And I want to introduce you to this man. and maybe he could help you. And I said, sure, I'll come down to Toronto. I took the train from Montreal to Toronto, met this man for lunch. And at lunch, this guy sat down and he asked me what I wanted to achieve in my life. And at the time, again, I was 19. I said, well, I'd like to move out of my parents' house. I'd like to buy a car. And I'd like to get a better job than I've got right now for $1.65 an hour doing what I hate. And he goes, well, that's all possible. What are some of your bigger goals? I said, I don't have any. He said, well, why don't you sit down for, 10 minutes? And he gave me this document. And he said, answer these, 10 questions, and then let's talk about it. So I said, sure. And his name was Mr. Brown. And so I opened up this document. And the first question on this document, Igor, was, at what age do you want to retire? I'm laughing. I'm 19, retire. I said, what the fuck? Retire? I can't afford to pay attention, let alone retire. So I said, what am I supposed to put here? And he said, just pick a number. I said, okay, I'm 1945. So I wrote down, 26 years later. And the second question was, how much net worth do you want to have upon retirement? I'm like, net worth. I lift up my head from looking at the paper and I said, excuse me, sir, what does net worth mean? So he told me what net worth was. And this is how ignorant I was. And then the next question was like, what kind of car do you want? What kind of lifestyle do you want? Where do you want to travel? Who do you want to help? So I said, travel the world, first class, Mercedes-Benz, 4-bedroom house, retire my parents, have $1 million of cash in the bank, blah, 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 blah. And he looked at this document and he said, listen, young man, this is a really good vision for your life. He said, I'm going to ask you a question. And the answer to this question will determine whether you achieve every one of these things. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, oh, yeah, sure. One question is going to determine whether I achieve every one of these things. And he leaned in and he looked me square in the eyes and he said, are you interested in achieving these things, or are you committed to achieving them? And I'm sitting in my chair wondering, am I interested? Am I committed? Am I committed? Am I interested? What the hell? What's the difference? And so I asked him, Mr. Brown, what's the difference? And he says to me, Igor, he said, if you're interested, you'll do what's easy and convenient. If you're interested, you'll allow your current circumstances and your beliefs and your habits to control your thinking and your behaviors. You'll allow your stories and your reasons and excuses about leaving high school at grade 11, failing English and math, and your father this and your mother that, and you didn't have enough of this, and you were traumatized here. You'll allow all of that to control you. But if you're committed, you will let that go right now. You will upgrade your identity to match the destiny that you want. You will upgrade your knowledge, you'll upgrade your skills, and you'll develop the habits that are aligned with the goal that you wrote down on this piece of paper. And so he told me that, and I'm like, got chills going up my spine. And so he leans in again and says, so now that you know the difference, which are you? Interested or committed? Igor, I don't know why, but I just looked at him. I go, in that case, sir, I'm committed. And he reached out his hand. And he said, in that case, and I put my hand in his, he says, in that case, I will be your coach. I will be your mentor. Right? And I'm like, wow. What's a mentor? And he explained to me, a mentor is somebody who will guide you. And that was the beginning of me being committed and learning the difference. But then I moved from Montreal to Toronto. I went to real estate school, passed the test 5 weeks later. And then he gave me a job working on commission only, for his company, making 100 phone calls a day, learning the scripts of what to say, how to say it, what are the objections, how to handle the objections, how to ask qualifying questions, how to close sales. He's put me on a path to learning. And over the next 6 months, I made I made $31,000 in the next 6 months, which was more than my father made in a whole year as a cab driver. And then by upgrading my knowledge and my skills, I made $150,000 in the next 12 months, 5 times more. I made $181,000 at 20 years old, okay, because one man, one question, a bit of training that I committed to every day changed the trajectory of my life. And since then, which is literally 42 years ago, I have been studying the human brain to understand what happened to me. And once I learned, I then built my Remax of Indiana company at a $4.5 billion a year in sales with 1,200 salespeople, teaching them the same stuff that I learned. And I've built a few other companies since then. So there's our opening.
Nice. Well, I wanna rewind a bit, and I want to take us to the time when you were already making money in real estate, but you didn't feel you were really reaching your potential.
Well, initially, I wasn't making any money in real estate, right? I started working, for him on commission only, but I knew that there was another gear that I could get into. I knew that there had to be more because other agents in my office were earning more. They were earning $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year back then. And I'm like, I want that. And so I got a taste of what success looks like, not because of anything, that I was doing, but I was observing other people who were making, 5 times, 6 times, 7 times the amount of money that I was at the time. And so I wanted to earn more because I started seeing other people in the same industry as me earning more.
Right.
So I've never stopped. Like, there's always another level. There's always another level. And so the question is, how do I keep moving up different level? How do I take, my yearly income, make it my monthly income? How to take my monthly income and make it my weekly income? How do I take my weekly income, make it my daily income? How do I take my daily income, make it my hourly income? These are all different layers, okay, of possibility for every one of us. Now, unless you're thinking about that, you get stuck. I don't stop thinking about it.
Yeah, I know. I guess what I meant, and it didn't really come out as a question, so I'm sorry for that. But
Oh,
what I meant is this: the moment a person starts thinking that way, the moment a person starts asking the bigger questions, right? You see someone making more money, and they don't really appear to be all that smarter than you, or you kind of get a taste for success, or you get an initial result, and you start wondering, can I really repeat that again and again? What ends up happening is once that seed is planted, you really want to get to more. And then this is when we start asking the questions like, what do I need to do? And that's where we start getting bombarded by all sorts of advice, start listening to motivational tapes, and we're being told, write down your vision and state your affirmations out loud first thing in the morning and then first thing before you go to bed. Like, I remember when I still wasn't really making any money in my online business, I was going to bed, and before falling asleep, I had a notebook just like this one, and it was always on my nightstand, and I would always write at least one page worth of, I am making $100 online quickly and easily. And then it didn't happen for a while, so I was like, maybe I'm reaching too far. Let me try something else. I'm making $33.33 every day online quickly and easily, right? So I was doing the affirmation thing, but nothing was ever happening. And eventually I grew frustrated with that process. Now, I know you had a bit of a similar experience as you were moving up in the real estate game. So what did that teach you?
sure. So I think, well, first it taught me the difference between wishful, hopeful thinking and behaviors, right? So the beginning part of whether you're an Olympic athlete, whether you're chess champion, whether you're really good at stacking cups really, really fast, right? Doesn't matter what the thing is. It all starts with a vision and seeing yourself achieving that vision and the goal, right? But then comes do I have the skill to achieve that goal? Because there's behavior on this little blue planet anyway. There's behavior, and behavior creates results. And there's behavior we take and behavior we don't take. Either one is a behavior. So now do I have the right thinking and the right beliefs? Then do I have the right skills? That's part 2. And then do I have the right actions and habits? That's part 3. think of it as a combination. And if you only have one number of a three-part combination, you might be super frustrated, right? I always have Rubik's Cubes sitting on my desk. And if you think about the Rubik's Cube, if you had a 2x2, 3x3, 4x4, 5x5, 6x6, or even 8x8 Rubik's Cube on your desk, and you started off with a vision, okay, to solve the Rubik's Cube. First question, is that doable? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Yes. Now, without taking the right action, is it doable?
Nope.
Nope. So you can have the vision, the intention, you can have the big reason why, but if you don't know the algorithm and then take action, you will never solve the Rubik's Cube, especially not the 8x8. The 3x3 has millions of possible moves. Just the 3x3, millions of possible moves. So where I was making a mistake that I didn't know early, but then I quickly learned, is we need the right mindset plus the right skill set plus the right action set. When we do that, ask yourself a question. Is somebody making 10 times more than you are online right now? Yes. Does that mean that there's a blueprint on how to do that? Yes. So the blueprint is not your biggest problem or mine. The problem is the mindset that's preventing me from making a commitment to learning the blueprint and then implementing it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that means that I can make $100 a month or $100 a week or $100 a day or $100 an hour online if I make the commitment to do it, I upgrade my skills on how to do it, and then I implement the skills that I've learned or that I have available to me on my team. And this is where most people miss the boat.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Now, I want to look at the other side of this journey because at one point in my business, I've hit a point where I felt I honed my skills, that I had upgraded the skill set, as you say, and that I was applying the skill set in an environment where I had a reasonably high chance of success, but I still wasn't really getting the kind of results that some other people in my industry were getting. And at that point, it did come down to mindset. Again, I don't know if you've had a similar experience or if you've seen this with your students maybe, but for me, I would almost sabotage myself away from bigger outcomes. For example, I would have an opportunity to sign a really like a whale client. You know what I mean? Like a client who was willing to pay me a lot of money, and I would either walk away from the deal because it was too much work, or I would lowball the price because I was afraid they're going to say no, or I would try to almost talk them out of making the deal, and I would only later realize that I was doing this unconsciously and sabotaging myself.
That's right. Yeah. So would you agree that procrastination and self-sabotage are effects?
True. Yeah. Not the cause. Yeah.
Right. So the question then becomes, what is causing me to procrastinate? Question is, what is causing me to self-sabotage? So let's go deeper. The reason I became a behavioral neuroscience researcher, that I research this every day, is I want to understand the neuromechanics, right? Because we all have a brain worth, $100 billion, but that's like having $100 billion, jet, but we just are not a good pilot because we've never learned how to fly $100 billion jet. Right? Think of putting the average person, into a SpaceX rocket. They'd kill themselves. They wouldn't know what to do. They wouldn't know how to take off. They wouldn't know how to land. They wouldn't know how to steer. They wouldn't know what to do in case there's a problem. Well, our brain is more complex and sophisticated than anything we've created. So is it possible, here's the question, that you're just not a good operator? And I'm not meaning you, but anybody who's listening.
I'm a pretty terrible operator of my brain. I'll admit to that.
Yes, you're not a really good operator of your brain, but that doesn't mean you can't become a better operator. So everybody that is listening, ask yourself this question. Were you born with any beliefs about anything? About what you're capable of achieving? Were you born with any habits? Were you born with a self-image or self-worth? Of course you weren't. But you developed these ideas, these beliefs that some are empowering you, some are disempowering you. You developed maybe an empowering self-image, maybe an inferior self-image. You developed fears around, what would it mean if you failed? What would it mean if you, did something wrong and you were embarrassed? What would it mean, if you were rejected? What would it mean if you disappointed yourself because you didn't achieve the goal that you wanted? And so we all developed these, what I call neural patterns, right, around ourselves, our skills, our abilities. And then we behave in alignment and in concert, in harmony with the patterns that are conditioned like software in our brain. And so when we self-sabotage, we say, well, what's causing my self-sabotage? Is it limiting beliefs that I have? Is it my self-image or self-worth that's causing the self-sabotage? Is it fear that's causing the self-sabotage? And by the way, I just gave you the 3 core reasons why we self-sabotage and procrastinate. And so then the question is it possible for me to become more aware of why I'm not taking the action I want to, or why I'm sabotaging, or why I'm procrastinating, and eliminate that from my brain's, I'm going to call it software? And the answer is, of course you can. Now, most people would say, of course I can, but they don't know the process to do it. So now we go back to the absence of skill creates doubt. When we have doubt, we have uncertainty. When we have uncertainty, we trigger fear again. So now when we understand the neuromechanics, if you think about, your brain, right? Like, what is your brain? It's an organism with 3 core networks and dozens of different circuits that turn on and off like light switches. Well, if you don't know how to activate one network or circuit, you're just ignorant, which means you're not stupid, you just don't know. Well, what if you could learn and you could then use your brain better, no differently than you can, use your car better, use a snowmobile better, use your bicycle better. So now it's a function of, I'm going to go back to, what Mr. Allen Brown, where he had me start. Are you committed to the vision or the goals that you want? Yes. Are you willing to upgrade your knowledge and skills? Yes. Are you willing to take action and learn how to regulate your mindset, your self-talk, your emotions, and change your habits? Yes. Great. Now let's begin. Unless you're willing to do those things, you can just hope and pray your way to death. But if you're committed, then there's a way. If you're not, there's always an obstacle.
There sure is. I mean, there's tons of obstacles and tons of distractions too.
Of course there are.
I've noticed about myself is when I procrastinate, I have a set of behaviors that I tend to gravitate to. It's not like I just sit there and stare at my screen or at a wall and be like, I'm procrastinating.
That's the person who freezes does that. That's one of the behaviors is called freezing.
Yeah, well, I don't seem to have that. I have something else where it's like either getting kind of bogged into video games, right? Or
distraction therapy.
Exactly, just getting sucked into distractions. Like I remember even when I was in my early 20s, my thing was to watch. There's this great car show, used to be a great car show called Top Gear. Now they kind of switched to Amazon Prime, and now it's called the Grand Tour. But basically, I would like go watch Top Gear. Like I would binge it when I was procrastinating because that felt like a relief, from having to make a decision or build my business.
Yeah, and if you understand a little bit about the human brain again, you were getting a reward called dopamine by doing that, and you were getting another hit of dopamine by not doing the thing that maybe caused fear in you, or the thing that maybe would cause you to think you might fail, or the thing that caused you to, feel that maybe, you'd be rejected or you wouldn't achieve with the result you wanted and you'd be disappointed. So you were moving away from that. You got to hit a dopamine there. You move towards, watching something fun that you liked. You got to hit a dopamine there. And watching the show was effortless, and overcoming the procrastination or the fear or whatever it is was effort more. And we gravitate towards conservation of energy because that's the number one priority of the brain, is conserve energy so I have enough for safety and survival and avoidance of pain. So I'm going to go back to, Igor, there's our brain, and there's how our brain works. It's like, imagine if you just had your hand and you had no idea how it worked. You'd have an appendage there of your arm and a hand, and you wouldn't know what to do. You wouldn't know how to pick something up. You wouldn't know how to feed yourself. You wouldn't know how to write. You wouldn't know how to type on the computer. Imagine if you just had this appendage there. Well, it might just dangle there, and you might be able to use it to hit something, by moving your whole body. But as soon as you learn how to grab something, hold something, use one finger or another, or two fingers or three fingers, or, use your thumb, we need to learn how to utilize the most powerful tool in the known universe better. And with a little bit of instruction and practice, we get better. And I know you and I earlier, we talked about, behavior that you did around, your affirmations or something. And affirmations don't work for the average person, not because affirmations don't work, but affirmations don't work because most people don't give enough time for the pattern to be created to become a dominant pattern. It wouldn't be any different if you practiced the Rubik's Cube for 3 minutes and you say, well, it's not solvable. Well, really? Of course it's solvable. We know that you need to do, this first, then this, and then this. And here's why. Well, think about this. I asked you earlier, were you born with any beliefs? And you said no. Well, what is a belief?
It's a way of thinking of yourself in a certain way over and over again.
Well, yeah. So let me ask you a question, Igor. Did you ever believe in Santa Claus?
I did, yeah. I did.
Yeah. Well, some people are saying, well, I still do. I get that. Now, now we know that Santa Claus is an imaginary figure. But we believed as children, oh my God, Santa Claus, presents, sleigh, reindeer, Rudolph. Oh my God, we had this entire story that was taught to us by parents, teachers, brothers, sisters, siblings, friends, television, all that stuff. And it wasn't, everyone's in on it. So, but if you think about it, we believed in Santa Claus, which means we had patterns in our brains that were created by other people. So an affirmation is just a deliberate pattern that you choose. And now the question becomes, how do I get this thing that I don't believe? Just like I didn't believe in Santa Claus at one time. I didn't believe in a bunch of things at one time that I now believe. How do I get these new patterns into my brain so that they start to drive my perception? They start to drive my emotions. They start to drive my behaviors. And here's what I can tell you. All the new research shows it takes 66 days to 365 days to create a pattern that reinforces itself into a habit. So how do we learn how to walk in one afternoon? How do we learn how to bike? How do we learn how to ski? How do we learn how to skate? How do we learn how to do the yo-yo? How do we learn the Rubik's Cube? How do we learn how to knit? How do we learn how to play chess? It's dozens and dozens and dozens, and then hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of practice, right? The conscious practice creates patterns. The patterns that are reinforced become permanent patterns. They're not permanent, but you get the idea, right? And the permanent patterns move from conscious to unconscious processing. That is called automaticity. Most people never get to the point of automaticity with constructive, productive behaviors that are aligned with their goals. They become creatures of their parents' habits, their teachers' habits, their siblings' habits, and the dominant people in their lives up until about the age of 12. And then they reinforce those patterns until they die. What I teach people how to do is how to interrupt the disempowering, negative, or destructive patterns, replace them with empowering, positive patterns, literally doing an upgrade on your brain so that the new patterns align and match with the vision, goals, and dreams that you have. Now, all of my students, all of them, know one thing about me. Don't become a student unless you're committed to at least 100 days.
That's a good rule.
Don't become a student unless you're prepared to commit to 100 days. If you want to take a pill, a potion, a lotion, go somewhere else. I'll see you when you're done with that.
But how do you get people to buy into that idea in this instant gratification society?
I teach them. You can have some instant gratification, but it doesn't last. So what do you want results for this weekend? Or do you want results for a lifetime? Do you want to have awareness, or do you want to have skill? Like, which do you want? And if you want to have awareness, go read a book. Read one of my books. You want to have a skill, get my coaching. Because it takes a bit of time to learn a skill. Now, nobody's going to do that unless they're committed to the result that they want. And I'm okay with that. Like, I'm okay with that. Like, you and I know, 98% of what I do is online. I generate 500,000 prospects a year into my orbit online. I help millions, but I generate 500,000 leads into my online generated business a year. So there's plenty of people who say, yes, we want to learn with you. We're committed to the outcomes we want. And those are the people that I want to work with because I can help them. If somebody's interested, nobody can help them.
Now, speaking of working with you, I know you've got the Brainathon coming up. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So about 10 years ago, people, not 10 years, but people always ask me, who are you learning from? What's the latest? What's the greatest? What's the newest? What's on the cutting edge? And so 10 years ago, I invited some of my neuroscience and neuropsychologist friends, and we did an all-day training for, I think, about 6 or 8 hours for free. And like 20 some odd thousand people showed up. So I did it again the next year, and like 50,000 people showed up. I did the next year, and the next year, and the next year with new experts each year. And so I'm doing my 10th annual Brainathon that's coming up. And I'll be on. We'll probably have about 150,000 people register for it. And it's free. It's online. It's going to be on a Saturday, and I'll give you the link if you want. And, I'll be teaching. Dr. Judy Ho, forensic psychologist, will be teaching. Dr. Joan Rosenberg, who teaches the PhD program at Pepperdine, will be teaching on mastering your emotions. Dr. Shafali will be teaching about, awakening to your authentic self so you can get rid of all the crap that's holding you back. Actually, I've got internet marketing genius, Billie Jean, will be on this year. I've got Natasha Grano will be on this year, who's got 15 million Instagram followers. I've got Gregory Kermans, a brain expert, talk about neuroplasticity, teaching this year. And the whole idea for this year's theme is really eliminating obstacles, shattering limitations, so you become unstoppable. That's the promise and the theme. And we're going to teach people how to change their brain so they change their income and change their life. And it's free. It's fun. We'll be giving away thousands and thousands of dollars in cash and prizes. I think the grand prize this year for our 10th anniversary is $10,000. So a lot of fun, a lot of great knowledge and skills, a lot of fun. And it's free.
And it's free, and it's fun, and you guys should attend it. So If you want to go and check out the Brainathon, it's actually located at brainathon.com. So you want to go and check that out. As you just heard, it's all about mastering your brain and making your brain into a much better tool, mastering the skill of using your brain and getting the most out of it. Now, John, any last words of wisdom for the brainiacs listening?
Yeah, listen, for any goal you want to achieve, as I mentioned earlier, there is a specific mindset that you need to have. There are specific skill sets that you need or you need to have on your team. And then there's a very, very set of specific behaviors, for high performance, right? And I think many of us, want to, live as much of our potential as possible, achieve as much of it as possible. We want to be high performers. We want to earn more. We want to have more. We want to give more. And here's the good news. The blueprint is readily available. There's not many people that are listening right now that are trying to figure out how to colonize Mars. So to get started, we don't need, we don't need monstrous innovation at first, right? We need to get all of the fundamentals in place. And if we get the fundamentals in place, then we could build up from there. The challenge, Igor, is a lot of people just don't have the right fundamentals. They have the hope and prayer side of it. They have the vision side of it, but there's more fundamentals than just that. It's like, I don't mind, big visions and big goals. And yes, I get that's the fantasy, but between the reality and the fantasy, there's a few more layers to it. And if you're committed, you don't have to be the rocket scientist to figure out what the steps are, because the steps are already figured out. You just need to make the commitment to learn and apply.
I do have one more question. So first off, I want to remind you guys again, go and check out the Brainathon. It's free. It's 10th annual event, and you should attend it if you want to get the most out of your brain, be it to make more money or to have better relationships or to finally lose some weight or to start your dream business, whatever that is. But John, I wanted to pose another question, one final question to you. And it's this. You know how they say that people either move away from pain or move towards pleasure? And how some people are very optimistic and they'll be imagining different great outcomes for themselves, or they'll be excited with just ideas. For example, my best friend Dennis is like that. Like, he's excited when he comes up with an exciting idea. Now, I'm like the complete opposite of that. You can't get me excited with an idea. No way. But you will get me excited very much if you tell me that a problem I have or that the problem I'm afraid of is going to disappear, right? So I'm kind of like move away from pain kind of guy. So
sure.
Does your brain system, or the system that you use to help people master their brain, does it work equally well for both types of people?
Yeah. So first and foremost, let's understand something about the human brain that most people maybe don't think about or don't know. Every brain functionally works the exact same way. Every brain functionally works the exact same way. So I'll give you the four core things you must know. Every brain functionally is focusing on survival and safety above all else. I don't care if you're a dreamer, you're not a dreamer. Your dream will stop dead in its tracks if you're walking across the street and a car is screeching and is going to hit you. You are going to biologically, automatically try to get out of the way. So safety and survival first. Number two, every brain is focusing on moving away from real or imagined pain, danger, or discomfort. That's the second priority of the brain. Number three, it has to do number 1 and 2 in an energy conservation mode. So it conserves energy. And then number 4, it's the gaining of pleasure. That's the way the brain works. So we don't seek to gain pleasure, okay, before we feel safe, with a couple of little exceptions. Number 1, there are very, very few people, percentage-wise, that have the X gene, where they seek that, danger zone. Like Jimmy Chin's got a great series on Hulu and Disney Plus right now on the edge of the unknown, right? It's the people that will do the most insane things, whether it's on their skis, their motorcycles, or in a wingsuit. That life is on the line, but they derive pleasure from doing that. That overrides their fear circuits. So for the rest of us, we do more to avoid pain than we do to gain pleasure. Now, the pain that we're talking about isn't necessarily a physical pain. It can be a mental pain, emotional pain, financial pain, physical pain, spiritual pain. Anything that our brain perceives as pain or discomfort, the first reaction that's automatic is move away from. And so we need to understand that. So the fact that you have some friends that get excited about this or excited about that, trust me, their brain works the same as you do, but they just may have, a different initial way of seeing the world. Like my wife immediately sees danger where I see opportunity, right? So she sees the holes where I see the net. Mm-hmm. Both are there, but she sees holes first. I see net first. Then I see holes, and then she sees net. So there are certain propensities, but when it comes to our financial, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual health, we all operate in the same way.
All right.
Both always exist. So there's nothing wrong with you or your friend. It's just your natural propensity.
Yeah. And I've always found that difference to be fascinating because we jam so well together as a result of being different. So it makes a good team.
Of course.
Guys, look, you can tell John knows a lot about the brain. He can teach you a lot about the brain. I can only imagine what else you can learn at the Brainathon with all the other experts that are attending and presenting. So check it out at brainathon.com. Okay, sign up. It's free to sign up. Plus, you can win up to $10,000 in cash prizes, besides learning a ton of really cool stuff. Okay, so it's brainathon.com. There's going to be a link in the show notes, of course. And if you're driving, please don't take your phone right now and go to brainathon.com. That's not safe. Just pull over on the side, get some coffee, and then go there. So, John, thank you so much for spending this time with us today and teaching us a little bit about the complicated beast that is the brain. Thank you for listening to The List Building Lifestyle. Get access to the previous episodes, transcript of today's show, as well as other exclusive content at listbuildinglifestyleshow.com. Also remember to claim your free copy of my best-selling book at www.igorsbook.com. It explains how I made millions with list building starting from scratch. Plus, I'll give you $3,000 worth of free bonuses, including my best landing page templates, email swipe files, and traffic blueprints. Go to www.igorsbook.com now to claim your free package.